Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5.
Oh, thank you. It was a lot of fun. It's good. It's been a good time. And we learned a lot.
Donald Trump says he and Vladimir Putin will discuss land and power plants when they hold Ukraine peace talks on Tuesday.
I'll be speaking to President Putin on Tuesday. And a lot of work's been done over the weekend.
The US has been pushing for a ceasefire in Ukraine, but Russia has not given a firm position, instead insisting on various conditions. The EU's foreign policy chief says that is a sign that Moscow isn't really interested in peace. Meanwhile, Ukrainian and Russian drone attacks continued overnight, while Ukraine says Russia is still trying to invade the Sumy region of northern Ukraine. Yemen's Houthi rebels say there have been fresh US strikes against them, with the number of dead rising to 53, including 5 children. Targets in the Al Jaouf and Hudaida areas were hit. The US launched what it called a decisive and powerful wave of airstrikes on Houthi targets as part of efforts to stop attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. Washington says some other Houthi figures are among the dead, but the group has not confirmed this. Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi said his militants would target US ships in the Red Sea as long as the US continued its attacks on Yemen.
This was an overwhelming response that actually targeted multiple Houthi leaders and took them out. And the difference here is, one, going after the Houthi leadership, and two, holding Iran responsible.
Canada's new Prime Minister has gone on his first foreign visit to Paris and London a day after his 60th birthday, hoping to achieve more than symbolic encouragement. He says he wants solid support from his allies. Not only is Canada being targeted like Europe by a raft of US tariffs, but Donald Trump is making it clear he wants to take over his northern neighbour.
With you, Mr. President, I want to ensure that France and the whole of Europe works enthusiastically with Canada, the most European of non-European countries, determined like you to maintain the most positive possible relations with the United States. Canada is a reliable, trustworthy, and strong partner of France, which shares our values and lives them through action.
More than 200 Venezuelans alleged by the White House to be gang members have been deported from the US to a supermax prison in El Salvador, even as a US judge blocked the removals. El Salvadorian president wrote on social media that 238 members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua had arrived in the Central American country, along with 23 members of the international MS-13 gang. A federal judge's order prevented the Trump administration from invoking a centuries-old wartime law to justify some of the deportations, but the flights had already departed. At least 40 people have died after tornadoes ripped through a swathe of the U.S. Midwest and South. Missouri bore the brunt of the twisters. At least 12 people have died in that state. Powerful winds in Texas and Kansas whipped up dust storms that resulted in vehicle pileups and a dozen deaths. The extreme weather, covering an area of the country that is home to more than 100 million people, fanned nearly 150 deadly wildfires in Oklahoma. Fatalities were also recorded in Arkansas, Alabama, and Mississippi. More than 320,000 people across the region have been without power since Sunday evening. A SpaceX capsule carrying a new crew has docked at the International Space Station, paving the way for astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams to come home. Live footage showed the SpaceX Crew Dragon docking with the ISS and opening a hatch, with the astronauts embracing and hugging their counterparts. The pair were due to be on the ISS for only 8 days, but because of technical issues with the experimental spacecraft they arrived on, they have been there for more than 9 months. The astronauts are due to begin their journey back to Earth later this week. And Dublin has turned green as thousands of people poured onto the streets for the St Patrick's Day parade. More than 500,000 revellers celebrated in the Irish capital. Included were more than 4,000 participants, including marching bands from around the world, performers, dancers, and colourful and creative St Patrick's Day floats. Cities across the world also marked the occasion with their own parades and carnivals.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.